So you started playing Genshin Impact. It's about time. The most exciting part of the game is getting a bunch of characters that you can beat some booty with. Now, most of these characters you're going to get through a random stroke of luck through something called wishing. But 10 of them you're guaranteed to get for free throughout the game just by playing it. So here I'm going to tell you who they are, how to get them, and which ones are worth your time to build up in the early game. But before that, I have to clarify two things, which are the adventure rank and the quests. So your adventure rank is going to be your account level. Now, each character has their own levels, but this is totally separate from that. It's you as a player what your account level is. When you start, it's going to be 0, obviously, or 1, I don't really know. But in the beginning, it's going to level up very quickly, and the way you could find that number is just by going to your main menu. It'll say it right here, under your name. This is just going to build as you play the game, as you do quests, as you beat up some monsters, as you finish a couple of domains. So keep this number in mind as I'm talking about which characters you're getting, because some of them you need to be a certain adventure rank in order to unlock. And quests you're going to be given hundreds of throughout the game, but you have to go to a specific menu to view them. So if you're playing on PC, you just click J and it'll bring up your quest menu. If you're on console or whatever else, just go to your main menu. I don't know what the shortcut is, but you can go to your main menu and then go to quests right here. So similar to before, where some characters you need a specific adventure rank for, some characters you need to finish certain quests for, and you'll be able to see them here. Now, usually they're broken up into categories, but I've completed all the ones that I've been introduced to because I'm a perfectionist, I guess. Now, this is an example menu with some categories for the quests at least. So you'll see at the top it says Archon quests. The next one is story quests and then world quests. And the ones you want to focus on for this video are just going to be Archon quests. Okay, the first character that you get when you start the game for free, obviously, is the main traveler, Aether, or Lumine if you're a simp. When you get the character, they're not going to be Pyro like this. They're going to be Anemo like this. Now, the reason for that, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but basically as you progress throughout the game, each region you unlock has a specific element associated with it. And when you start in Mondstadt, this is the nation of Anemo. But as you progress into Liyue, you can go to one of the statues of the Seven, and you can click Resonate with Geo, as long as you have the main character selected. And when you do that, it will convert the main character to whatever element that region's element is, in this case, Geo. And right now there are 6 available to you. Cryo is not unlocked yet. That will happen in the next version, the next big version of the game, but current regions are all of these except for Cryo. So technically you have 6 characters right here. So that's number 1. The next 3 I'm going to kind of lump together because the criteria for getting them is pretty similar for each. First is Amber. Okay, so remember when I said that there's going to be some characters that you have to complete certain quests to get? Amber is one of them. And you have to complete Prologue Act 1. So to refer to that other picture of the sample quests, you'll see that right here under Archon quests. This is Prologue Act 3. So before that, you're obviously going to have to go through Acts 1 and 2 first, and somewhere during Prologue Act 1, you will get Amber for free. Now that also goes for Kaya and Lisa. All 3 of them you will get by the end of Prologue Act 1. So you'll have a full party. At that point, you'll have the main traveler, Amber, Kaya, and Lisa. Next is going to be Barbara. Now Barbara is a little different. So for her, you have to complete Prologue Act 3, which happens to be this one displayed, but you also have to be at least Adventure Rank 18. And as long as you've done both of those things, you can go into the Events tab, and somewhere in here, you should see a quest that looks like this, Baptism of Song, and you should be able to just claim her just like that. Okay, the next character is Lynette. Her criteria is way simpler. You just have to reach AR 25. That's it. You don't have to do a quest. You don't have to do anything. You just have to play enough of the game to where you get to AR 25. And once you do that, you should see another event called The Curtain Never Falls on Magic. And you'll get her, 3 of these little goopy flowers, and a couple of gears. And that's it. You have Lynette now. Okay, we're gonna move on to Kachina, and Kachina is a bit convoluted. Kachina is similar to Barber, where you need to be a certain adventure rank and you have to complete a quest. But the problem with Kachina is she's released in a region of the game that you don't get to until way later. Right? You have to finish the Mondstadt Archon quest, then the Liyue Archon quests, then Inazuma, then Sumeru, then Fontaine, and then Natlan, which is where she's from. Now that's way down the line. But the game will offer you a skip to Natlan story button as long as you are AR 28 and you've completed Chapter 1, Act 3. And as long as you fulfill those, you should be able to see that event pop up in this list. Keep in mind, if you're watching this video and the version of the game is past version 6.0, this option will no longer be available. So as long as you're playing a version of the game that's before 6.0, you'll be able to do this. But honestly, I don't recommend it. There's so much story that you're gonna skip in order to get there, just to get this character. And yeah, she's cute and she breakdances. But a huge part of the enjoyment of this game is getting immersed into the story. So why would you skip 60% of it to get a character that you will eventually get for free anyway? That's just my take. Do whatever the hell you want. All right, the next character is Shang Ling. And for her, it's very simple. After you hit AR 20, you're going to unlock something called the Spiral Abyss. You should get a little tab that pops up here. If you click it, it'll bring you to the teleport point for it. Now, if you go there, these are combat challenges. And I don't think you're gonna see all of these the first time you go in. But all you have to do is complete up to floor 3. Once you beat floor 3, again, it'll be an event and it's called People's Choice. As soon as you beat it, you'll see the option here to just claim a Shang Ling. The next character is Kale. Her criteria is almost exactly the same. So where Shang Ling, you have to beat floor 3, Kale, you have to beat floor 4. So you might as well just do it right after you beat floor 3. And you get 2 characters for free. And that'll pop up as an event also called Curtain of Leaves. You could just claim her right here. Okay, the last character that you'll get for free is Noelle. Now, Noelle is interesting because there isn't really any sort of criteria you have to meet in order to get her. You just have to wish once. So wishes are here, or through the main menu, you just go to wish here. Now mine looks different because I don't have the banner that you're going to see at the time. You're gonna have similar banners, but you're also gonna see an extra one that looks like this. And all you have to do is do a 10 pull of wishes on this banner and you're guaranteed to get Noelle within those 10. So it'll look like this right here. It'll be wish times 10. The beginner banner is different because it's technically 20% off. So you'll get 10, but you only have to spend 8 of these, or 1280 of these. Yeah, that's right. So there you go. Those are all 10 characters that you will get for free. And keep in mind, these are permanent. So it doesn't matter when you start doing this. They will always be available to you. There's no time limit on any of this. You could play the game super casually. Eventually you'll get them. So don't worry about that. Okay, so now you know all 10 characters. You know how to get them. Now we got to talk about who's worth your time. And we're going to go through them in the same order that we presented them, which means we're going to start with the Traveler, and we're going to rank them based on how good they are at their specific role in early game. And the roles that we're talking about are DPS, which is the main damage dealer, sub DPS, which is a secondary damage dealer, or a support who just kind of helps the team out in some way, whether it's healing or buffing or defense or what have you. And the Traveler is a bit interesting because there's so many characters in one, but the criteria to unlock these characters ends at around AR 28. That's the highest adventure rank that you have to be in order to get any of the characters on this list. And by adventure rank 28, you should be if you're exploring somewhere around Inazuma, which is the third region, which is the region of Electro. And by that point, the Traveler will have Anemo, Geo, and Electro under their belt. So I'm going to rank the Traveler based on the best element of those three, which, in my opinion, because you could make them all work, is quite honestly, I'd have to say Geo as a sub DPS. And they're pretty good. So basically, a big part of the Geo Traveler's kit is the burst, which will do a decent amount of damage. It's nothing substantial, but it definitely looks cool. And then it creates a ring of Geo around the opponent. But really, the main reason that I'm saying Geo's the best out of those three is because of their skill. Early game, sometimes there's portions of the map that you're exploring that you can't really get to easily because you need someone that could either jump really high or you need more stamina or something like that. But the skill, you can place a construct on the ground, you can climb it. It makes it easier to get to where you gotta go. It also blocks damage. If an enemy's throwing something at you, you could hide behind it, which is okay, but mostly it's used for exploring. And again, the damage from the burst is actually pretty good if you build it up right. So are they substantial? No. Are they okay? Yeah. So I'd say as an early game sub DPS character as a whole, the Geo Traveler is B, just about middle of the road type fella. All right, next is Amber, and Amber is another sub DPS character. And early game, she's a little more useful than people think because you're learning how to fight, right? And when you see 4 of these dudes coming at you, it could be pretty intimidating if you don't really know the mechanics of the game just yet. And where Amber comes in is her skill. She could throw her little bunny, and then, whoa, before I start dying. Now what she can do is she throws her little bunny, and they attack it instead of you. So you have a little more time to kind of figure out what you want to do or who you want to attack or anything like that. So I do think she's a little more helpful early game than people give her credit for. Also, her burst is just kind of cool. Just a rain of bullets. So I think she could be helpful with the limited number of characters you get early on in the game. And as a sub DPS, I'd say she's about on par with the Traveler, maybe a little worse. So, still B, but not as B. Alright, Kaya's next. Kaya's another sub DPS character. You can see there is a trend towards sub DPS characters early on in the game. So Kaya's main focus is his burst. His skill does something, but not too much. But his burst is the important part, because you can cast it, switch to your other character, and it's still on field doing damage to that character as you're attacking with the other one. So it's pretty good. It really doesn't do great damage, and it doesn't apply cryo very frequently, which is important for reactions, but it is there. Also, he could freeze water. So if you have to get somewhere, you could just make a little bridge to get from A to B if you don't have enough stamina. Yeah, it's gonna take a while, but it looks cool. Overall, as a sub DPS though, I would say C. A bit worse than the Traveler and Amber. Lisa is next. She is also, you guessed it, a sub DPS. So Lisa's attacks are a little strange, and this is a character that you'll actually have to learn a little about to use properly. But basically, she casts her skill, and she applies a number to people with a max of 3, right? The more I do the skill, the number does not go up past 3. Once she's at 3, you can hold the skill, and once it flashes, you can let go, and the higher the number on the opponent, the more damage that skill does. And at max of 3, it does a good amount of damage. But the reason she's a sub DPS is because of her burst. Once you cast it, it takes this AoE right here, and then you can go to your other character and kind of go crazy with them, while the lamp attacks on its own. Personally, I think she's pretty fun, but does that make her good? Kinda. The problem is that the reactions that Electro is involved in for early game players aren't as good as some other ones, right? When you mix Electro with Pyro, you get overloaded, and that's pretty powerful, but it also shoots enemies away, so it could be pretty annoying for early game players. Electro charged is when it combines with Hydro, and that's pretty good if you're dealing with multiple people, but I don't think that's really enough to say that she's good. And considering the learning curve is a little steeper than the others, I think I'm going to place her just above Kaya. In C. But keep in mind, she is the only Electro character of these free characters, so if you really like Electro, have a ball. Alright, next is Barbara. And Barbara is going to be our first support character. She's a healer. Her skill throws a bubble around you, and as long as that bubble's singing its little song, your health bar at the bottom is going to go up every few seconds, which is useful for early game. So if you look at all my characters, their health is pretty low, and Barbara's burst will heal everyone. Not fully, depending on how well you build her for healing, but you'll see everyone's health increased, which again is pretty helpful. Honestly, Hydro is a very good element. It could set up a lot of reactions that are very early game friendly, and having a healer just feels good when you're learning how to fight and when you're learning the game. So honestly, I think she's pretty good. I think she's going to be our first A. Next is Lynette. Now, Lynette's pretty cool. I think for an early game player, you could have a lot of fun playing Lynette because, one, her skill is just fun. If you tap it, you'll do a little stabby, but if you hold it, you can run pretty far, pretty quickly in a little ninja form, and then do your stabby. The burst is also similar to Amber's skill, where he'll summon a little hat on the ground, and it'll make enemies attack it instead of you. So it's another little taunt, which again is useful when you're learning how to fight. So for that reason, she's also primarily a sub DPS. And in my opinion, a pretty decent one at that, because you can use her as a main DPS because her skill does a good amount of damage. Her burst exists on the field whether or not you're playing on the field as her. It taunts enemies, so her upsides are pretty much the same as Amber's, except you have the option to play her on field in a more sensical way. And also, by virtue of her being a Nemo, it enables the use of the Viridescent Venerer's artifact set, which is very good. I'm not going to go into why it's so good, but basically, if you hit an enemy with an element, and then you switch to Lynette, and you swirl that element, that enemy will lose 40% resistance to the element that was swirled. AKA, you do a lot more damage. So for those reasons, I think she bumps up a little higher than Traveler and Amber into A. Next is Kachina, and Kachina's interesting. She's a character that was introduced in the newest region called Natlan, so she uses something called Night Soul, which is a new mechanic they introduced in that region. And it's really not complicated. Now we have that stamina bar right next to us when we run, and that runs out as you use it. Similar with Night Soul. You activate the skill, and there's another bar that pops up called Night Soul. And as it is used, it depletes. And when it runs out, it disappears. So her skill is interesting in that it has two use cases. One, which you just saw, where it'll periodically do damage on its own. Or two, you can hold it, hold E, you could jump on it, and then normal attack, and you could jump up and down like a little pogo stick. And the burst is just a big instance of damage, kind of like the Geo Traveler. But it also creates that little field where if you're riding, this does more damage and affects a greater radius. Her skill can also be used to Ride Up Walls, which honestly, it runs out really quickly if you're not in Natlan. Ooh! So it doesn't really help too much, but it could be kind of nice to get around. Her big pull is, again, artifact based, because only people from Natlan can activate the effect of Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City, which again, I'm not going to get too deep into because it's a novel, but basically big damage. So besides being fun and cute, she really doesn't do too much except enable that artifact set, which in early game, you're not going to be able to get for a while. So honestly, early game, Kachina is kind of useless, which is another incentive to not skip the entire story just to get her. Next, Xiangling. Xiangling is a very early game character that is still being used today widely. She's another sub DPS, big surprise. Her skill throws her little bear, Woba, which attacks every second-ish, gives you some energy. You can see some of the particles. It also drops a pepper that increases your attack a little bit if you pick it up, but her burst is why everyone uses her. You can activate it, it does big damage, and you could switch to other characters and it'll still be present. And it lasts a long time. It's very good. It does a lot of damage. Pyro itself is very strong, so it can react with a lot of other elements. And Guoba's cute, so she's gonna be our first S. You should build Xiangling. All right, Kale next. Kale is, you guessed it, another sub DPS. Her skill is very cool. It's a boomerang. She's all say. Bang. Get some energy. It's very cool. It activates this ring around you, which will just do more damage on its own. And the reason she's a sub DPS is because you can, again, throw her burst, switch into another character, and do some damage. Okay. A good amount of it while the burst is going off. And honestly, the burst is very powerful. There's a lot of challenges that people do throughout the game, especially late game players, where they try to beat the Spiral Abyss with only 4-star characters. And pretty consistently, Kale is being used on those teams. So as a sub DPS, I think she's pretty good. I think she's better than Lynette. She's gonna be an A. And last, Noelle, the maid. I personally like Noelle a lot. Now, Noelle is good because she does a lot in one kit. Her skill is a shield that does some damage. And while the shield's active, if you're attacking with her, your health will go up and she'll heal not only herself, but the entire team as she's attacking. And her burst is the fun part. She basically does everything that she did before, except when you activate her burst, now her sword is massive. It does more damage. It lasts a really long time, and you can just spin around and pretty much destroy everything. So Noelle is really our first main DPS character, but she also protects you because she creates a shield. She heals the team, so she's kind of also a healer, and she also does decent damage. So she's kind of like the Mario of every game, just a well-rounded, kind of does-it-all character. Not necessarily the best, but absolutely not the worst. And look at the drip. This is crazy cool. A suit of armor made outfit with roses just kind of scattered. I love it. So Noelle, early game, she's gonna be S. Now, are people gonna fight me on some of this? Probably. I welcome that. I am but a man with an opinion. But I'm also a late game player that's been able to beat everything the game has to offer. So I know something. So here we go. The best bang for your buck characters that you should build in the early game sometime before AR 30, 25 even, Xiangling, and Noelle. Then focus on Barbara, Kale, Lynette, maybe, unless you're wishing for characters. Don't waste the story skipping to get Kachina, considering she's D, and everyone in between, use at your leisure. You know, if you love Lisa, and you're like, oh man, but she's C, don't listen to me. Build Lisa. Or vice versa. You hate Xiangling, but she's S. Don't build her. Not worth it. You're supposed to have fun. And if every time you're playing Xiangling, you're on the field like, yeah, I'm killing everything, but I hate how it looks. I don't like her. I'm not having a good time. Then it's not worth it. It's not worth building that character. So use this information as you will. At the end of the day, it's a game. But hopefully this list will help you figure out who to prioritize to maybe level up quicker or advance in parts of the game that you thought were difficult. And let me know if it helped you. Leave a comment. Let me know how y'all are doing. And I'll see you for the next one, all right? Ciao.